Bonjour tout le monde! My first trip to Europe was when I was 16. We traveled as a high school group, a small chaperone trip, where a small group of us went to France and Spain the summer before our junior year, and we did it road trip style. We hit all the main sites, we traveled by coach bus as a tour group, and I remember it was hot. Now, I remember Paris, I remember Cognac, Barcelona, but the rest is a blur. And while I look back on that trip fondly now, and the fact that I was even fortunate enough to be traveling at such a young age, and I didn't hate the trip by any means, I have to admit, I did not love Paris. I didn't. It definitely wasn't love at first sight, and it wasn't until years later, when I visited again as an adult, that I realized what a beautiful, well-deserving place France is, and of course Paris, to actually vacation and then actually later on live. But there were major differences between that group trip of my teens and my visit 10 years later as an adult with a girlfriend of mine. Both had an impact on how I perceived Paris and France overall the second time around. So tell me, have you ever been to a place and felt kind of meh about it, or even worse, maybe you hated it right off the bat, just to go on to discover that maybe later it's worth another look and your opinion changed? Any way you look at it, first impressions, they carry a lot of weight, and if you get a bad vibe from a place or even a person, you might never want to go back. And I get it, that was me. You know, trips, first of all, they're not cheap, and if the place kind of sucked the first time around, why the heck would you want to maybe waste money going back to a place that you didn't even like and might potentially be sucky round two? You would want to go to somewhere else, right? I'd actually argue it might be worth another look if you change up a few things. The way we experience a place, it depends on so many factors that most of the time have nothing to do with the actual place itself. Now, granted, of course, you might just not like a place, and that's fair. I don't like every place I go to, no matter how many times I visit. You might just realize it's not for you, and that's valid. But other times, all these external factors, they can play into how much we end up enjoying our trip. So in my case, I found out what I didn't like, I tweaked a few things so that it was a much more enjoyable experience 10 years later. So let me explain what I mean. Let me start with the obvious question. Why? Why did I hate Paris the first time I was there as a teen? The first reason is because of the way we traveled. So it was group travel. We all didn't know each other. Like, it wasn't just a tight friend group. It was a group of like a bunch of us from different classes. We traveled on a coach bus. We were constantly doing touristy things. I'm an introvert. I like my alone time. It was a week-long trip. It was packed, like totally jam-packed with activities. And it was also my first time out of the country. You know, it was the first time I was away from my parents too, I think, for that length of time. And there were a lot of firsts, and it was a bit overwhelming. Now, if you know me, you know, first of all, that I hate being busy. I really do. I hate having a jam-packed schedule. And our schedule as teens, it was packed. You know, I like to enjoy my time. I don't like to feel rushed, especially when I visit places. You know, I want to really see them. I want to observe and not zip around trying to do all the things in a quick 2-hour trip to a museum or whatever it was. And that high school trip was the exact opposite of what I like to do. So strike one there. Now, on top of the other reasons, I also didn't really speak French beyond a few months of high school French. And that was like a joke. You know how it is back in high school. And it felt very foreign to me. One of the first times in my life as a 16-year-old in Europe for the first time where I felt like everything around me was foreign. And the real kicker was actually, I told you this story in a recent video, when a drunk dude at a Nanterre park spit at us. He was just not having a good day, and it landed on my foot, which was an open-toed sandal. So gross, you know. But to sum it up, all of that, just all these factors left a really sour taste in my mouth. But if you flash forward to my second trip to France in 2008, I went with a coworker who was a friend of mine. It was just the two of us, and we figured Paris deserved a second chance. We had a blast, and I remember everything from that trip, and so much was different. So I want to just get into some aspects that affected my second trip and why it was overall a better experience. I really thought a lot about, why did I really hate Paris the first time? Was it something about Paris? Was it something about me, the style of travel? And I think it's a bunch of the things that I'm going to talk about, you know, and they count for a lot. The things I'm going to mention, they count for a lot when it comes to an expensive trip, especially one you've been hyping up in your mind and looking forward to. So really think about these things and let me know in the comments if these are things that are high on your priority list. So number one, who you travel with. The who is huge here. And I've learned the hard way over many trips that your traveling companions, they make all the difference. I've had great trips with friends and not so great ones. We all have different travel personalities and styles, so definitely choose your people wisely. And I will say that a family vacation is completely different from a small school trip, that's different from solo travel, and that's different with a significant other or a girls trip. There's all different types of trips. You want to think about things like your sleep schedule, your energy level. Is it compatible with the people you're with or with the style of trip? What about your ability to just go with the flow? How you deal with conflicts that may arise? These all matter and contribute to your overall trip satisfaction. So if you want to experience a place differently the second or third time around, definitely make sure your travel companion is different. For me, a family trip or one with just Tom is like an automatic, woo, slam dunk, perfect. And I learned this little by little over the years. And I also learned that solo travel really isn't for me. I want someone to share the experience with. All right, the next point is your accommodations. How much do accommodations matter to you? Are you more of a rough it kind of person? Book something when you get there? Are hostels okay? Or do you want top of the line luxury hotels? Will a bare bones kind of hotel ruin your trip? Do you need to feel pampered? I don't know. Nothing's wrong. Nothing's right. It comes down to your style and also your budget. Will splurging on a hotel stress you out? It might. And I would say all of these questions are 100% worth considering before you finalize your plans. Some of us spend very minimal time at the hotel or apartment and we don't care if it's super nice, and other people are the exact opposite, and that's going to be a top priority. On top of that, location really matters too. No one wants to have to take an hour metro ride on public transport just to get into the hot part of town. And I will say, back on my high school trip, our Paris accommodations, they were outside the city center. I'm trying to remember where. They might have been in Nanterre, I don't know. And we had to go on this hot coach bus every day in traffic, in the heat, just to get into like the touristy areas of Paris. So I wonder, how would my experience been if maybe we had stayed somewhere a little more central? All right, next, your travel pace and your particular travel style. And this one is huge because if there's a mismatch between you and your traveling companion in terms of energy or expectations, nothing at all is going to come from your trip that's good. It's going to be bad, very bad. And I have had several trips in my younger years that involved arguments and hurt feelings and just not being like emotionally mature enough at the time to just kind of put things aside. And looking back, I'm like, wow, I'm glad everything worked out in the end. But you really want to consider things like, how do you like to get around? Are you okay spending money on a taxi? Or do you only want to do cheaper things like public transport? What time do you like to eat? What time do you like to sleep? Your entertainment style, budget, what's going to be fun? And these are things when I traveled in my younger years with friends that we didn't really consider. When I went to France and Spain when I was 16, we barely had any time to do anything because we were just there for only a few days, always moving, and we had a tight schedule from how much time we were spending here and getting from point A to B. And just that slow moving hot coach bus, it wasn't fun. And I learned that I get a little queasy on bus trips, especially if the driver is a heavy breaker and it's a manual transmission bus. So good to know. Now, of course, upon visiting France again, as an adult with my friend, we had no set plans. We had a similar travel style, similar sleep and eating habits, and we went where the wind blew us. We stopped where we wanted to for however long we wanted to, and we just walked around and we did whatever felt right. So it was a much more relaxed trip that fit my travel style. And also, we were at a different life stage. We were working professionals. We planned everything ourselves. We didn't have to be on a bus at a certain place at a certain time. We just did what we wanted when we wanted, and that made all the difference. It was a game changer. I think, at least for me, there's a lot to be said for doing it your way and traveling with a like-minded companion, and to know that up front, that you're traveling with someone who kind of gets you, you get them, and you're kind of on the same vibe, same wavelength. And even if it's uncomfortable or might mean it's a deal breaker, I think you need to be upfront with a potential travel partner about your expectations. Don't just wing it, and to just be upfront about what you're looking for on the trip. I've definitely made a mistake here where I've let the excitement for the destination and the planning kind of overshadow these initial conversations. And that's ended badly, just with arguments or just a mismatch and not having a great trip. So for sure, talk openly, talk honestly, and that way you're going to know if you're a match with the person before taking the next steps. There's no one right or wrong way to see a place. Just because you're great friends with someone does not mean you're automatically going to become great travel companions. I might have also learned this one the hard way. All right, next, the season. What time of year is it? And do you like that season? I have to say, I love winter, I love the cold, and my high school trip in Europe was in July. Just imagine how sweltering that was. There was no AC. It's not that I hate summer, I just hate being hot. I only like being hot when I work out, so if I'm like sweating in my normal clothes, not cool. The heat just sucks the life out of me, and I'm sure that if I had visited in a cooler month, maybe my opinion would have been different. So this was a huge contributing factor, and I will say that when I went with my friend, we went in December, and it was great. Coincidence? No. All right, next, your French level. Now, of course, I know it's not practical to assume we all know a little bit of the local language every time we travel abroad, but honestly, learning a few words, it goes a long way, and I have videos on like basic words in French, also blog posts, I'll link it up here or in the description. And that's just so important, just to understanding what's going on around you, just being able to communicate, even if just a little bit, and just to show basic respect for the culture that you're a guest in. It can make travel that much more comfortable. Now, at the time when I went with my friend, I had been taking French lessons at the Alliance Française in Montclair, New Jersey. Whoop! So I felt a little more confident this time around, not like when I was 16, because you learn a little about the culture, about the people, and only good things come from that. I feel so fortunate to have been able to experience France as a teen and then again in my 20s, totally unaware that I'd be living here now in the future. Both trips, they were learning experiences that I'll never forget, even if the details of that first one were a little hazy at this point. But I want to turn it over to you. I want to know if you've ever had an experience like mine where you visited a place once, didn't really care for it, but upon visiting it again, you changed your tune and you ended up loving a place. I want to hear about that. Let me know what kind of traveler you are down below in the comments. And also, if you're visiting France soon, I want you to be prepared. And I have an e-guide to that end titled 75 Beginner France Tips for a Standout Trip that I'd love for you to check out, linked below in the description. It has all kinds of practical information, like on transport, money, culture, all kinds of things to help you. It's a great way to support my channel. So if you like what I do here on We in France, I'd appreciate you checking that out. I think I'll leave it here for today. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you back on We in France soon. Salut!